Up next on Inside the SCCA, we're at the runoffs.
Make their head drop.
Welcome to episode, we're going to guess 188 of Inside the SCCA. This is presented by RaceSchool.com. We are here at Elkhart Lake, the beautiful National Park of Speed, Road America. I'm Brian Belansky. With me today, none other than Dave Ogburn. We've had him on the show before. He is here trying to win a national championship.
Trying to, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're partway there.
Partway there.
It's such a long week as you feel like you're here forever, and then you forget that there's a race at the end. You get so focused on qualifying. So.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. We got a lot to talk about. You've had a big year.
It has been.
He's not only trying to win a national championship, folks. He is the reigning one lap of America champion.
Yeah, so
that's pretty cool.
It has been. Yeah, it was unexpected, an awesome experience, especially to do it with Goodyear.
Yeah,
with Team Goodyear and my coworker Nick. So it's been a very good year.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Let's talk about being here at the runoffs. This is a weird event. I don't think there's very many races anywhere in the world where it's a 9-day lead up to, well, Indianapolis, the 500.
Sure, I was going to say Indy. I feel a little weird comparing what I'm doing, but in some ways it's, for what I do or what we do, that's the only thing I can think of where you have that much.
Right.
At Le Mans you have the test day, but they're kind of split over a weekend.
Right.
This is something where you have if you do all of the test days, you can have 6 days on track, then a 2-day break, then a race at 4 p.m. on the last day. Can be your schedule.
It's a little better at Indy now because they've shortened the month a lot.
Right.
But back in the day, and even now, the teams and drivers kind of refer to Indy as a marathon.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of a sprint race at the finish.
Right.
Although that sprint race is the hardest 500 miles probably anywhere in the world. And so when you have the typical mindset of you come into a race weekend, you might get one practice, you might get one qualifying, and you go racing, and then you've got to come here. How hard is it to switch up the mindset from all of that to we've got multiple days of testing, we've got multiple days of qualifying, and then if the car is still in one piece by the time we get to the race, maybe we got a chance to win a national championship?
Yeah, it definitely is a different mindset, especially because you have breaks, so big breaks between the qualifying sessions, with one session a day. But I found the first couple of years, for budget and other reasons, I did as few test days as possible, and in some ways that limited me because I was less prepared, especially if it was a track I had not been to before, or my car wasn't, as well dialed in as we got into the qualifying days. But the first year I went to the runoffs, it was also 4 qualifying days.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point I think it was 3 test days and 4 qualifying days. But either way, as I've started to do more of the test days and kind of build up to this event and put more focus on trying to do well at the runoffs, I find after 3 days of testing, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
By not just, it's not necessarily the on track, but you spend so much time bench racing and BSing about where you think everybody stacks up and who, especially here, who had a draft, who was on these tires, and you almost wear yourself out with the stress and the tension towards building the qualifying that I kind of find after that first qualifying session, whether it goes well or doesn't go as well, that it's kind of like, okay, everybody's played their hand a little bit.
Right.
Yes, things may change. Some drivers, may massively move up in the rankings. Others may have, kind of shot their best shot on day one, but you can see it.
Right.
No one holds back on day one.
So there's a couple of different types of drivers here. They're the drivers who, for whatever reason, whether it's their car, whether it's their inexperience, whether it may be their lack of talent,
sure,
they know they're not going to start up front.
Right.
Then you've got the guys who are expecting to start up front who are qualifying well.
Right.
Then you've got the guys who are expected to start up front who haven't qualified well.
Yeah.
There's your 3 types of drivers here.
They're very different weeks.
They are. So when you're running at the pointy end like you are, how do you strategize? What's your strategery for 1, 2, and 3 day of qualifying? which is your most important day? Assuming
Uh,
all of the days you're kind
Yeah,
of towards
I mean,
the front.
The most important day, we look at the weather a lot with the Spec Racer Ford, wind, pressure, temperature, they can play a big effect.
Right.
So I mean, I think it starts with. I am really happy with the schedule having consistent times. 'Cause
Right.
I do, at some points you might have an 8 a.m. session and a 2 p.m. session, and for the most part, your 2 p.m. session is worthless compared to
Sure.
the morning session, just from a temperature point of view. So now that we're running at a consistent time every day, we first start with, okay, what's our big day?
Right.
Is there any day that's like an aberration from
Weather-wise.
a condition point of
Right,
view?
right, okay.
Because at some point when you get towards the pointy end, none of us are that much faster just
Right.
from a pure driving point of view than the other. So it's about
And your
having-
cars are all pretty well sorted.
and our cars are as consistent as any spec class in
Right.
the world. And so it's really down to the preparation of your car, the decisions you make on tires, and then the decisions you make on how to qualify. Because in our class being a drafting class, there is quite a bit of thought into how we get the people you want to run with, how you get together, and then
Right.
how you don't also help others that you don't want to help. And it is not that we're going out of our way
Sure.
to degrade somebody else's chances, but I'm not going to tow somebody around
Right.
if I don't get anything out of it.
Right.
And I would expect the same.
Yeah.
And so the drivers that I run with are Russ Turner, Denny Stripling, and Richard Stevens, the guys we run WRL with. We're real close, and we run with some different prep shops, but we come together to runoffs, and we try to help each other because we're 4 drivers that can qualify, top 10 pace. Richard's having a few issues with his car. We're trying to help him get towards where Denny and Russ and I are now. But we have, not an advantage over everybody, but advantage over folks that don't have, that prep shop or their team that they're running with. So we're trying to get the 3 of us or the 4 of us organized,
Right.
get together, but then get clear laps where we're not in traffic. And
Yeah.
so that is where a lot of our thought and effort goes into is
Right.
once the cars are good, we spend the test days a lot of times working on how we're going to qualify.
Sure.
Because the field for us is so deep. I think there are probably 20 drivers that think they can win the runoffs. There's probably 15 that really can, and probably the other 5 could probably fight for the podium. Is
Right.
the way I think about it. But it's there's legitimately 15 people that are. You're going to have some drivers that came here expecting to win and they finish outside the top 10 and they finish.
Right.
And they're not going to be happy with that finish. So that makes qualifying super important.
Right, especially when you've got, I didn't look at the numbers. Is it 60 this year? How many?
Yeah, 55 or
Yeah,
60, high
that's
50, something
my
in that.
cat.
Yeah, we're kind of in and around Respect Miata with the biggest class. I can't remember who was quite the biggest, but yeah,
it's a lot.
We're up in that range of we fill the track up.
If you're starting 30th, you're not, unless the whole front of the pack gets taken out in a wreck
yeah,
or weather or whatever the case be. If you're starting 30th, you're probably not winning.
I
So,
would say so.
qualifying is so
It's
desperately
incredibly
important here.
Yeah, because it's especially when you get in a train. So you're in that draft train
Right.
with other drivers that are fast. One thing that changes with Road America is it becomes difficult to drop someone.
Right.
At other tracks, you have your car dialed. You're having a good day. You're at Mid Ohio. You can drive away from someone. Yes, the draft does help, and it will help keep someone that's maybe a half second
Right.
within your pace in your basically staying with you.
Sure.
Here I kind of think of it as like you have to be basically a second faster than someone to drop them.
Right.
And so there's 15 drivers that
Yeah.
are within that second. It's going to be hard. The pack is likely going to be split more from a mistake, 2 drivers fighting when they shouldn't be fighting.
Right.
But that's where
And that's the case in all the classes. It's just not
Yeah.
Spec Racer Ford.
right.
So, and the reason I didn't ask you what your strategy is if you're not where you think you should be,
Sure.
because that's easy. Every
Yeah.
qualifying session is the
Right.
most important. The next
100
one is the
the
most
next
important
one, the
one.
next day.
So
Yeah.
there's no real strategy in that. You just
Yeah.
got to put it together and put it down. So, you were here for the sprints.
Yes.
We won't. And here's the big difference between the sprints. We didn't have good conditions at all
No.
at the sprints
No, we had
until
very few.
Sunday.
Right.
And at Sunday, you're just trying to win a race.
Yeah.
So you're not really thinking much about the runoffs at that point.
Right.
Here we've had spectacular conditions.
Really
a
good.
little chilly, but that's good.
Yeah.
A little windy. That's not so whatever, but not horribly windy.
Yeah.
But the weather here has been phenomenal so far. And it looks like we're going to hold pretty much through the weekend, knock on wood.
Right.
It's not wood.
Yeah, knock on metal.
Sorry. But the forecast looks really
Yeah.
good for the rest of the week. But the track has changed dramatically, I'm told, from June until now. How so?
Yeah, it seems to be, and I don't know how it is for other classes, but it seems to be liking, fresher tires. It's lower grip, and so you need to change your setup in ways to put the grip in the car, not use the tire
Right.
a little bit. So it's changing balance. So our cars are handling quite a bit differently. Some of that could be the track temp
Right.
and the ambient temp being down. But yeah, I would say the main things, it's what it's liking from a tire point of view.
Yeah.
Um,
Has it even changed? Have you been here for all the test days since Saturday?
yes.
Has it even changed since Saturday?
In some way, so Indy in 2021, to me, was like the biggest shift in, if you set your car up on Saturday and you left, you were P1 in every session on
Yeah.
Saturday. You showed up for Monday, you were 15th on Monday.
Yeah.
Or Tuesday, whatever the first qualifying day. And I felt more, I have barely changed my car
Right.
from
Shouldn't
Saturday.
say things like that.
Yeah. But it's I haven't felt the track change significantly.
Right.
It's different than in was it June. It's only the third time I've been here.
Right.
So I've done the June sprints twice, 2020 and then this year. So I'm not the foremost expert on road. Obviously, post repave, it kind of resets
Right,
everybody's
sure.
track knowledge. So, yeah, I would say the main difference is it does appear that the track is the surface is changing in a few of the corners in the apex, the high load, high cornering force. It's
Right.
It's changing the way the tire's using the track.
Going back to Indy for a second, you're a tire guy, and
I am.
and that's why I'm going to ask you the question.
Okay.
Before our first runoffs at Indy, I don't know that there was ever a group of cars like SCCA cars that ever raced at the Indianapolis Motor
Yeah.
Speedway. So that track had never seen the rubber that we put down on that
Right.
track. Could that be why Indy changed so dramatically from the first day to the next day, whereas this track's had a lot of
Exactly.
club racing rubber on
Yeah,
it?
that's my assumption.
Yeah.
Is that Indy changed from basically it's like a totally green track, like you had a monsoon,
Right.
and then came in, and I want to say that year we had dry test days, and so
Right.
you're just, and we had a massive,
Yeah.
massive field. I remember it was 800 or 900 cars.
It was
and
big.
So even on the test days, you're probably still having 400, 500, 600 cars, and
Sure.
so yes, I would assume there is you have a less seasoned in, rubbered in
And-
racetrack.
And the IndyCar, NASCAR, IMSA probably was already running their tire compounds are very different than what we
Right.
have. So
And they don't run the little button hook that we ran.
Right.
They run the chicane, and so there were sections of the track that were as green gets.
Yeah.
Where we run Road America slower, but just like IndyCar runs
Sure.
Road America. So
So once you get to qualifying weekends, you've got a 20-minute session for
Right.
qualifying, and then you're done for the rest of the day.
yeah,
Except that you're not.
yeah,
You're working.
yeah.
How many students are you working with, or how many drivers?
Just one.
Just one.
I try to limit it to one at the runoffs.
Okay.
'Cause as crazy as it sounds, with just one session a day, you find ways to keep busy. And I coach more during the season.
Okay.
And then I try to have one person at the runoffs so I can give them a lot of focus.
Right.
Help them at the biggest race of the year, but then I don't overextend myself because, there's time spent up. So there's a spec fuel for the runoffs, which I really like.
Yes.
It is not a complaint, but it does take time to get that. It took me 2 days to pass the fuel test, and it's
Right.
not because I'm cheating on fuel. It's because
The
it
little
just-
bit that was left in
yeah,
the tank.
every time we went there, just like a little bit more,
Yeah.
a little bit more, and so you're pumping out, you're cycling fuel. All of our rental cars have tons of race gas that
Sure.
was in our cars when it came here, and extra little steps like that you and prep that you put into the car.
Right.
You use the time to make sure that you and your car are as prepared as possible.
So the reason I was asking about the coaching is, for me, my mind would be all over the place all day long. Either if I had a long wait before my qualifying session or a long wait after my qualifying session, then have to sleep and then come back, and my brain would take over my body. And I was going to ask, does the coaching help you pass a little bit of time
Yeah.
where you're not thinking about your car, you're not
Correct.
thinking about your
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
and let you
And my
divorce
wife would
yourself.
say I spend enough time thinking about myself, so it probably gives
You're
me
driving.
Yeah, probably gives me time to for sure. It gives me something to do. I enjoy it. Yeah, and yes, it gives me something else to do other than just think about every minor detail because there's so much that you can't control. And so you asked about which qualifying session is most important. Unless there's a major condition difference. Even if, let's say, we know Wednesday or Thursday, so day 2 or day 3 is going to be theoretically better than day 1. I approach the first day of qualifying like it is the only day of qualifying because
Okay.
it could be for many reasons.
And then if you get a good day on Tuesday, do you then approach Wednesday like it's the only day of qualifying?
then it's house money.
Yeah,
You know,
okay,
and
okay.
so then it's okay.
So it's your banker day.
Right. So to me, the banker helps with confidence. So there's some mental effects there, but it's also, when you have a big field in any of the classes,
Right.
It's you can get a yellow, you can have oil down from the class before you, you can have a problem with your
Right.
car. I remember one year at VIR, there was an accident on lap 1. Luckily, nobody hurt.
Yep.
But I think we had a 4-minute session.
Sure.
And so essentially we lost a day. So if you were banking on that day, so I think of every day as the most important.
Yeah.
Again, we have it in the back of our mind of, hey, we might put our best set of tires and do certain things on the day we truly think is the best. But Tuesday to me is a very, very, very important day because it sets the tone.
Exactly.
You have less pressure. And again, if you get a good time on the board on day 1, we had a good day 1.
Right.
So having this experience right now, but it's house money after that.
What day do you race?
Saturday.
So, what do you do Friday?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
I've had some discussions. There's some guys talking about playing golf.
Okay.
Somebody talking about chartering a boat. One thing, and if my parents listen to this, they'll make fun of me. I don't need to be here all day,
Yeah.
every day, is the reality. But
Right.
at some point, I can't leave. Like, I
Yeah.
feel very weird. I
Not,
feel
not
like
coming here Friday would be weird to you.
very weird.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure we will watch some of the races. I don't remember the schedule off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll watch a couple of the races on Friday. I imagine we will spend more time at our Airbnb or doing something else. I'm horrible at golf, so I probably won't play golf. But if golf was
Mini
a
golf.
hobby, I would. We will take the extra time to a little bit of prep on the car. But for the most part, Friday is kind of a relaxing day,
Yeah.
and you try to have that kind of a break from. And my preference would be to race Friday.
Sure.
If I could plan
Yeah.
it, I would like to go.
Assuming
straight.
weather was good Friday,
Yeah,
Saturday,
100%.
Sunday. Assuming all the
but
weather was
I'll try to use the day to not just sit there and think about the race. The most stressful day for me, the night that I have the most trouble sleeping, is the night before the first qualifying, because
Okay.
it's the night where it's like, I think I can do it,
Right.
but I haven't done it yet.
Right.
And then even if I don't have as great of a day 1 as I would like, I could at least see potential, and I kind of, once everybody's laid,
Yeah.
the cards on the table, I feel better. And then at some point the race is what we're here for.
Right.
I look forward to Saturday. There's a lot out of my control. I'm going to do the best that I can.
Sure.
And it will take care of it. Especially at Road America, a lot of things can happen. And so, the most stressful day for me is Monday night. That was the night that I had the most trouble going to sleep. 'Cause
Interesting.
It's for me, it's that first qualifying where you finally see the order.
Yeah.
You see the whole order. And because, of the 15 drivers that we think can win, you see which one of them is
Right.
15th and which one of them is first. And it sets the tone for
Yeah.
the rest of the week in a lot of ways.
Anything surprised you so far this year with the track or the situations or whatever?
I would say, some of the way the track is changes with the way that we're using the tires from pressure and other thing, that has surprised me. But all in all, there are the first day, and honestly, something happened similar at VIR last year where I think there were some groups of drivers that didn't get as well organized, and the spec racer, what I'm more familiar with, on day 1, and so some of the gaps were bigger. I think everybody looks at our class, and I look at it the same way. As
Sure.
You expect there to be tenths and hundredths separating, not half seconds.
Right.
So today the field has very much filled out to where it's like 10th.
Yeah.
And so now it sort of makes more sense. The first day was a little confusing from that point of view. But yeah, it really. So what's one of the things that surprised me is just the conditions. I mean, they've been phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just when we,
You're welcome.
yeah, thank you.
I talked to
Yeah.
the weather guy, and
Yeah,
I grew up
I
here,
appreciate that. Yeah,
and
control the weather machine.
yeah, exactly.
We were looking at Denny and some of the guys are sending the weather, every couple of days
Yeah.
before we got here, and I just you know what, I'm just gonna look up when we get here.
So I looked at the weather probably last Monday, a
Okay.
week ago,
Yeah,
and I'm like, it can't stay like that. The forecast can't stay like that.
what did it look like? When
It
you
was
looked?
like we have now.
Oh,
looked,
okay.
It looked great.
Oh yeah, because I
And-
had one app was showing like rain a bunch of days, and other apps were showing great.
Yeah.
And so I just
Well,
decided-
growing up here, the joke is if you don't like the weather, wait an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's no way. And then every day it kept on looking the same, and we're now looking at the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
That just means that next year's probably going to snow,
Yeah, very
which is
well.
not unlikely or impossible in
Yeah.
October. So, all right, we're going to talk about one lap in a second. Let me say some thank yous real quick, and want to make sure we thank the folks who got us here, and that is, of course, our presenting sponsor, RaceSchool.com. They have classes, or they've got school days at both Buttonwillow and Willow Springs. People come from all over the country. They fly out to California. I think they make a big vacation out of it and not just go to the race school. But they also know when they come out to California, they're going to get good weather for the most part, almost positive, for their race schools. They do regular racing schools where you can go, and when you're done, if you pass, you get your SCC license, your SCCA license. They also have teen driver programs, driver development programs, lots of cool stuff. Check out raceschool.com. They are our presenting sponsor for the next year for Inside the SCCA, and thank you very much. Racekeeper is the official in-car camera of Inside the SCCA. We did a bunch of stuff. We were out with you at the proving grounds with the spec Mustang and had the Racekeeper video for that, so thank them. Also, Ray Esports is the official sim racing league of Inside the SCCA. We love all those guys, and I really enjoy racing with them. And then, of course, we've got Solo Performance Specialties. They were out at the Solo Nationals last month now, I guess. We were out there. Great people helping out the Solo community, so thank them. All of the information for all of these folks in the show notes. Check them out. And if you go do business with them, tell them Brian sent you. The last person we have to thank is Goodyear Racing Tires. If you look at the banner, they're on the banner right here,
you go.
folks, because they are the presenting sponsors of our runoffs coverage, which actually starts Friday. So this is kind of just a sneak peek. But Jay Chapman and all of the team at Goodyear, awesome folks. Third year in the row helping us out to come out here, and we wouldn't be here without him. So thank you to them. I think we'll have Jay on the show later in the year.
Okay.
He doesn't.
So we can see him right now.
I
too,
know
out the
he's
window.
right over there.
Right
So
over there.
so we're in a suite right now, right across from pit lane. It's actually a great setup. I love it. Thank you to the SCCA for helping us out with that. But that's where all the shows are happening from. But I can look right over there, and it's fun to watch the cars go zipping by while I'm doing my work here.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So you've had a good year.
I have.
How many times have you done one lap?
I did it. This was year 5.
Okay.
So yeah, 2019, and then it didn't happen in 2020, and then 2021 with my dad.
Right.
So first years with my dad, and then started with Team Goodyear. So with kind of a work supported program in 2022, 23, and 24. So yeah, 5 total.
So prior to this year, what was your best finish?
6th overall.
Okay.
Won class a few times, but yeah, 6th. It was actually the only. So within the one lap world, it's the top 10 ranking is
Right.
You have classes, and then it's the top 10 overall. That's kind of the goal for a lot of the teams, and so we flirted with it with the Camaro
Right.
that Nick Galata, my coworker, also test driver at Goodyear. We've run together all
Yeah.
3 years. He's been my mentor, and I tell people all the time I could barely drive out of a parking lot if it wasn't for him. So
I
he pretty
love it.
much taught me everything I know about driving.
Yeah.
I talked to him like an hour ago. So I've been I send him video.
Sure.
He's my coach. And anyway, so we won our class a few times in the Camaro and flirted with top 10, but always had some calamity or
Sure.
something keep it. So yeah.
Well, and the one lap is a stage race.
basically.
So you have to finish first. You
Yes.
got to be right in every stage. You don't get a clinker stage.
Yeah, that's the unique,
And that's hard.
unique thing about the event is that, when you look at the point structure, you have some experience of how it works. And the event is very competitive, but it's also super fun. And
Yeah.
like you talked about with the runoffs, it's the same thing with SCCA Solo Nationals. There are people doing it for fun. There are people doing it to be competitive later, and then there are people that competitive, and hopefully all of them are having fun.
Yes.
That is kind of the point. But with one lap, you earn 5 points times the number of competitors. So to make the math easy, there's 100 competitors. You get 400 points for a win. Second place gets 395.
Got it,
Third
okay.
is 390.
Sure.
Okay. So if you're one of the top 5 fastest cars, the most you can really gain on somebody is 20 or 25 points.
Yeah.
But if you have a bad day and you finish
200th.
yeah, right. Exactly.
200
Then-
points.
Yeah, then you could lose 200 points.
Right.
And you can't make that up
Right.
against another fast car. So it's really about you have to be fast because you have to get, the high point total as many days as you
Right.
can. But you cannot have a bad day. If you miss a day, you're done.
Right.
From an overall standings point of view.
Right.
But if you have a bad day, you have a mechanical, you
Right.
throw it off track, it's wet and you're on a tire that's not as good in the wet or something like that. It can very much limit the way you finish
Right.
overall. And so the average finish becomes the most important thing,
Right.
basically.
It varies a little bit from year to year, but how many days was it this year?
For wet days?
Oh, no, total days.
Oh, total days. Yeah, so at least every year I've done it, it's always 8 days.
8 days.
8 total
and there's
days.
And there's more, on some days, there's more than one event.
Correct. Yeah. So the only things that are consistent is it starts, at least in, again, the current
Right.
version, it starts in South Bend, Indiana
At
with
Tire
Tire
Rack.
Rack for the wet skid pad. It's always wet skid pad first.
Right.
Tires are fresh.
Sure.
You do that first before we go wear them out. Then at the end, we do a dry skid pad. So same facility on Tire Rack's test track in Indiana. The only thing that can change that if it rains for the dry skid pad, it can be wet.
Right.
So, but
Sure.
still, you're starting and ending with a skid pad event, and that is just a pure how many lateral G's can you pull? They time it around a loop and then
Right.
convert it to lateral G's, and so that can play a huge factor because if you have a 1,000 horsepower Corvette,
Right.
and then you have a Toyota Camry. Well, Toyota Camry can be fast around a skid pad.
Sure.
And so the order, that's the biggest fluctuation you see in the order. So those events can become a big part of the finishing
Yeah.
order, actually.
It's on my bucket list to do this.
Yeah,
to
it's
do this race.
So it's 6 days of time trials, and then and the time trials will be basically a morning and an afternoon.
Okay.
For the most part, one year we did NCM, the Corvette Museum track, and we did 3 time trials. So we did
Got it.
the 2 short loops and then the full. That's the only year. I think they've also done that at Motorsports Ranch Crescent in Texas. But for the most part, you'll have 2 time trials, and then one day they'll feed in an autocross.
Okay.
And so that last year we did it at NCM in the parking lot at NCM, and then there is a drag race.
I was
event.
going to say, usually there's one
Now, the
one
last
drag
3
race
years,
day.
We've done no drag race. It's been rained out. That's the
Oh,
only
okay.
thing that you can't
do in the rain.
with the
Yeah.
the prep track
Sure.
prep surface.
Sure, sure.
You can't run it in the wet.
Okay.
So I've only done in the 5 years I've done the drag race once.
Okay. Okay.
So
So over 8 days, at what point? Oh, by the way, they won. I think I mentioned it at the top, but I don't want to bury the lead completely.
right.
You guys are the overall champions.
we won over.
And was this the first year with the Boxster, with the Porsche?
Yes, our first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know when we talked in December that you were trying to put that whole thing together, and it
Yeah.
wasn't official yet.
Yeah, when
and-
I talked to you about it, I had been told that we could get a car. I did not have a car.
Got it.
I spent a lot of my Christmas break tracking down 911 Turbo S's
Yes.
to find one available and before anybody changed their mind. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
given the green light
At work.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking, I don't need anybody coming back from vacation and deciding that this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
So luckily that didn't happen. So we ended up getting the car.
And that can't happen in the corporate world.
I'm sure it can, but luckily, we're very well supported, and
Yeah.
so we got the car in mid-January,
Okay.
and we needed to get some wheels made, and it took a little bit, and the car's based in Akron, so I work out of Goodyear's Proving Grounds in Texas,
Right.
But Nick is based in Akron. The car
Sure.
is its home is Akron at the headquarters, and so we waited for kind of the snow to fly, and then we were able to do a little bit of pre-event testing, and we didn't really tell anybody that we had the car
Until you
purposely
entered?
trying to get a
Sure.
keep a secret or keep it from anybody, but we didn't go out of our way
Right.
to tell anybody either. We wanted it to be, kind of Goodyear make an announcement, and stuff like that happened maybe a week or two before the event.
So is that car stock essentially, besides wheels and
For
tires?
the most part, we did a few safety modifications. So we put a half roll cage in it,
Okay.
and we did it came the package of car that we were able to get is basically it's a 2021 911 Turbo S with
Okay.
a lightweight package.
So it's not a
I
Boxster.
found correct, yes,
Oh, okay.
Turbo S. So
Okay.
I found a unicorn car
Yeah.
basically, and we think it was a former press car.
Okay.
So I should probably, I think Randy Popes is here. I should probably ask him because
Okay.
I think he may have driven it
Okay.
for Motor Trend
Yeah,
at some
yeah.
point. So that kept the price down a little bit because
Sure.
it had some miles on it.
Sure.
But either way, yeah, it's a phenomenal car, and Goodyear is the OE fitment on that car.
Ah, okay.
So there's a kind of a link with the OE tire.
Right.
It's one that's developed in Europe. My counterparts in Europe. But yeah, we did some basic modifications. Nothing go fast parts. Just
Sure.
mainly.
Couple
we
safety
did
things.
one thing to get a little more camber, and then we put harnesses in to run with the roll cage, and,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Fantastic.
So
So 8-day event. You've done it 5 times. At what point during the week did you guys know you had a chance to win the thing?
yeah, so it's gonna sound weird, but it was actually day one, and because we ran the Goodyear Eagle F1
Right.
Supercar 3, so it's our it's branded as a 220 treadwear tire, but it's essentially our 200
Right.
treadwear extreme performance summer tire.
And that's the same tire that is on the spec
The
Mustang, Club Spec Mustang.
correct, yeah.
So obviously different tire size and
Sure.
everything, but it's the same compound, same tire.
Right.
And which is interesting because I know you guys had run that on the Camaro also, right?
Correct. So same
So
tire.
So and I know you'd run the Camaro at the one lap before. So when they announced that was going to be the tire for the Club Spec Mustang, I was like, oh, that's going to be a
Yeah.
ton of fun.
Yeah.
And then I got lucky enough to drive it real early on, and it is a whole ton of fun.
Yeah, it's a
But-
fun tire to drive. It's progressive, gives the driver
Yep.
good information, has good grip, and it's consistent.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons we like it for the One Lap America event is because, you think about, okay, it's only 8 it's only 2 time trials a day, 3 laps per time, but it adds up. You're starting to do 30, 40, 50 laps, and some of these tracks can be 4 miles long.
Right.
Plus the street miles.
Right. So, and what you might not know if you don't follow one lap, the tires you start on are the tires you have to end on, unless you have a flat.
Correct.
And not only are you doing
And
them
you can't drive a nail into your tire halfway
on purpose,
through to get a fresh one.
I'm sure someone's tried
I'm
that.
sure it's
I'm sure so. But not only is it the track action, it's also the transits.
Right.
And how many miles is the total with the transits?
It's typically around 3,500 miles.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what this one was, but it's in that range of.
So everybody has to have a tire that can do the whole event, including
Correct.
the transits, which is that's a specific type of
Right.
tool.
It does limit. There are some of the, you could call them more the autocross style,
Right.
faster 200 treadwear tires that you're managing tires by the end of it. It's just
Sure.
a reality. And for us, one thing that Nick and I like about this tire and using it for this event is that we know that from a tread depth point of view, we're going to have tire left at the end.
Right.
We're gonna, if it rains, we still have some tire left. Because
Yep.
you can start your week with a fantastic wet tire. If the tire's heavily degraded
Yeah.
by the end of it, low tread, okay, that kind of goes away. And
Sure.
so you have to think about the durability from a track point of view, but also
Right.
it's also why you can't just set up for a full out and out track alignment. You have to think about the alignment.
Yeah.
You can destroy a tire in a 500-mile transit just like you can on track.
Sure.
And so, yeah, it's a lot that the tire has to go through, and that's one of the reasons that Goodyear and other tire companies as well are interested, in this event because it's tire focused, not tire focused, but the tire plays a significant role in how you finish and how you perform.
Right. Is there a tire management process where maybe for the transits, you're putting the rear tires on the front. Can you even do that? Are they
No,
different
not- well, our
sized?
car, yeah, we're different sizes.
Okay.
Yeah, we yeah, I'm trying to, I mean, it's more.
Would that even help?
Well, yes, for sure. So some of the teams,
you could.
yes. So some of the teams that do have the same size at all four corners, they rotate a lot during the
Yeah.
week.
Okay.
Especially if you're going to predominantly left-handed tracks
Sure.
and you go to right-handed tracks. So we actually did go side to side at one point because
Okay.
I think we had done like 3 days in a row of left-handed tracks, and so yeah, we ended up. It was a lot of tracks in one direction, and so
Right.
we ended up switching about halfway through. So little things like that can just help keep the shoulder on the tire,
Right.
a little more consistent performance over the week.
So here, the other part of this whole one lap thing is the stuff that you leave South Bend with.
Yeah.
Is you got to carry it with
Yeah,
you
you have to carry
in the
everything.
car,
Yeah,
including your toolkit
yeah,
and your jack
everything.
and your
Yeah,
clothes.
we don't have a room for a jack. We borrow jacks from friends.
Oh, do you really? Okay,
Yeah.
is that legal?
Yeah, it's okay. It's you're.
So if the only guy with a jack is in second place on the last day and you need it, they're not giving it
yeah,
to
we
you, are
might
they?
have to go buy one. Get an Uber. We did. Nick and I did Uber brake pads to a track one time.
Okay.
That was a new experience for me.
Yeah.
That was 22 in
Okay.
the Camaro. But yeah, so you have to be self-supported. So some of the, especially like there've been some manufacturer teams, and by that I mean like you're a car company or a tire
Right.
company. So there are a selection of other manufacturers that do the event. I may not name the tire company, but
Sure.
yeah, we'll.
Yeah.
So General Motors and Michelin typically have a team.
Got it.
Yokohama's had a team before. Bridgestone had a team this year. Trying to think from car. Toyota has a team that's more kind of like the Heart Team Honda research team, where
Sure.
it's employee engagement. So
Right.
it's less of the marketing side and more of the getting your employees
Yeah.
doing something cool
Yeah.
with your products, which I think is awesome. And the Toyota team is has become a really like integral part of the event. They usually compete in a minivan in addition to their faster cars, and so you're not allowed a support vehicle.
Right.
But if your support vehicle is in the competition, you're allowed a support vehicle.
Oh.
So they have a minivan that competes, and it carries parts and bags and all sorts of things. And they're like the cleanup crew.
Can you can you pull a trailer behind your car?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can. Yeah. There was a team one year that did it in like one of the like kind of SRT Dodges
Yeah, yeah.
SUVs, and they towed a camper with it. And the funny thing is, I think they still stayed in a hotel, so I never quite
Yeah.
understood. But yeah, they towed a camper.
So maybe I'll just take the Fit next year,
sure.
and then I'll be your support team
Yeah,
because
so
there's
we're-
room in that Fit. As I've
Right,
learned, I
there
can
you
put a
go.
lot of stuff in the
Yeah,
Fit.
there you go. So yeah, the Toyota team, they're famous within the event.
Yeah.
For if you have a problem, they stop and they fix it. And
Oh,
so
nice.
it's a very self-supporting.
Yeah.
You don't leave someone behind.
It strikes me that there's a lot of camaraderie
Sure.
amongst the teams,
Yeah,
like
you
there is in a
feel-
club race.
You feel like a weird, crazy pack of nomads.
Yeah.
Traveling around the country.
Well, it's Brock Yates
Yeah,
has
it's
started the
exactly-
whole
that's the
thing,
way
and
he
that's the
wants
whole
it.
point of it. Yeah.
It's what makes it fun. So yeah, I've made some really amazing friends
Yeah.
doing it. Feel super fortunate to be able to do it. For Goodyear, especially with the level of car that I've gotten
Yeah.
to compete with. And look, we're planning to do it again next year.
So we walked past the question. You said day
Oh,
one.
Yeah, day one. Okay.
And that's because I kept asking
Yeah.
questions. Not your fault. So what happened on day one?
So the Supercar 3 tire, its strengths are dry, grip, and durability. It's good in the wet, but there are other competitive, our tire competitors that are better in the wet. We're better in the dry.
Right.
Everything's a compromise.
Sure.
And so typically our worst day has been
the wet skid pad.
finishing position has been the wet skid
Yeah.
pad. And we did a reasonable. We happened to have a test track, and
Yeah.
so we did some testing.
You
around
do,
the skid
yeah.
pad.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, I think you've been there. And so we looked at car settings, tire pressures. We did everything.
So you
we could
worked
do.
on that
We worked
event.
on the
That-
wet skid pad.
Yeah.
And our best finish ever was 35th out of the 85. I think 85 cars is the max.
Right.
And so, and one of the years that we finished 35th, Tom O'Gorman and his teammate who won that year, they won the wet skid pad. And
Yeah.
so you're thinking, okay, 35 points times 5. I don't feel like doing the math, but it's
A
a
lot.
lot of points.
Yeah.
And so it's almost an
Insurmountable.
lead
Yeah.
on day one. And so this year we finished 12th in the wet skid pad, which around our kind of overall competitors
Right.
was kind of right and is in a great spot. And so there was a feeling after the first day of like, whoa. this is good.
If we don't screw the rest of this up,
Yeah, and
we're in
you're
good
thinking,
shape.
like, we're trying not to get ahead of ourselves.
Sure.
And we hadn't even been on track with the car, and you know, with me being in Texas, you know, I was able to do one Track Night in America event, a CCA Track Night in America event in the car, about a week before the event, and I did maybe 5 laps, and you think now we're going to some of the other tracks and send it, and so there was a little bit of question of like, how are Nick and I going to drive? How is the car going to be? So again, we're not trying to get ahead of ourselves on day one, but it was so much better. Our goal was top 20.
Right.
And so an extra 40 points
Yeah.
on the board
Yeah.
compared to our goal. And we knew we would have a chance at being top 3 competitive. There's so much that can change. But then we left High Plains Raceway in Colorado on day 3 of the event.
Okay.
And we won both time trials at High Plains. And we left High Plains with the overall lead. And it was sort of like, okay, we're going to stop looking at points now.
Yeah.
And just all we can do is the best we can do
Yep.
every day. Because there was some rain forecast for later in the week, and you just never know how that's going to play
Right.
out. Because with one lap, you can also have you run in a run group. So the first event kind of sets. It's basically like qualifying.
Yeah.
Still counts the same amount of points, but it sets the order in which you run. So it's usually around 5 cars that go out together
Sure.
for the time trials. So you could have a car in run group 1 and a run group 2 that are both competitive for the overall, because maybe the average finish.
Right.
So you could have it rains heavier in group 1 than group 2 because you're not always out at the same time. And so there's the rain and weather can always affect the standings in ways that are sometimes unfair, but it's
Right.
I've gotten advantages from it in my 5 years, and I've gotten disadvantages. It evens out.
Yeah.
But it adds an unknown. And so we knew that it was going to rain at least at pit race, which was the second to last time trial. And so we tried to not get too far ahead of ourselves, but we went to the last event. At the end of it, we had a 5-point lead over the second place team, and the tiebreaker is total time. So they add
Sure.
your finishing position of every event. And not only were we within 5 points of the second place team, I think it was like 3/4 of a second on total
Wow.
time. We were basically on top of each other.
Wow.
And they had the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
And so it was literally tied. Because
Right.
if they beat us, if we beat them if they beat us by 5 points, they win the tiebreaker. So
Right.
it was whoever wins the dry skid pad
Yeah.
wins, basically, is what it came down to.
Very cool.
So, and luckily for us, the last day went well.
Right.
It was dry. We were able to use the advantage of our tire selection, and all went well.
Does each driver do each event?
You don't have to.
Okay.
So
So does it end up being the best time for the car, or so whichever driver gets the best time is what counts for that event?
no. So you one driver drives in each event.
Okay.
You're allowed as many teammates or team members
As you can fit in the
have
car?
seats.
Right.
So if you do in the minivan, could be 7.
Sure.
Most teams are 2, as
Right.
you can imagine. But you can have a transit driver and a track driver.
Sure.
Brock makes no
Rules by that.
No, you're not allowed to do the event solo.
Yeah.
Because that's just from a safety point
Yeah,
of
'cause
view
you can't-
of doing that many miles by
Right.
yourself. And you have to do the whole event. You can't
Right.
fly in,
Sure.
the local hot shoe or bring
Right.
somebody in just for a day. You
Right.
have to do the event. I think he made an exception one year for, I think it was Billy Johnson had like an IMSA race, and so he missed like the first 2 days or something. But he'll give you a little leeway.
Right.
But you can't be flying in ringers.
Or just
basically.
bringing a local ringer every day.
So Nick and I split the tracks up. So like I said, each day you have 2 time trials. So we compete as a team. It might be me driving. It might be Nick driving. But all 3 laps count. So it's not just your fastest lap of the 3. It's a
Okay.
standing start. You make 3 laps, and it is your total time of the 3 laps. And that's one thing that can be confusing sometimes if you look at the results and
Right.
you say, well, I know, they went to NCM. Like, man, why did it take them 7 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Right.
It's because it is a standing start
Sure.
lap and then 2 flying laps, and it is the total time reported. This year,
Right.
they had a nice upgrade. They had live timing that gave you the splits
Oh, nice.
by each lap, and so you could see. And it was interesting to see, especially with the Tesla, the Team PGR
Yeah.
Tesla, which stands for Panel Gap Racing, which I always think is funny. So they're great guys, and they run Goodyears and Grid Life Time Attack and some other
Uh-huh.
things. So we try to support them when we can. But it's interesting to see how the EV would change. Because they have a lot of strategizing and how they kind of deploy the battery.
Right.
And they were typically, fastest on lap 1 and then would slow down a
Sure.
little bit and then got that more even. And so, but to answer your question, yes, it's one driver drives in one event. Nick and I split it by track. Some teams will do AM, PM to have the experience of
Right.
everybody getting to drive at each track. And then Nick was planning to do the drag race. I did the autocross and the skid pads, but it's just how we decide to split it up,
Yeah,
basically.
cool. If anyone's thinking about trying to do the one lap, yes, do it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think most people that have done it will say, yeah, it started out as a bucket list, and then now I have
Do
to
you
do
have
this
to
every
kiss
year.
Brock's ring to get in, or do you just have to enter?
It is hard to get in.
Yeah.
I feel very lucky. As a tire company, I kind of just text him, hey, we're doing this.
Yeah.
He saves spots for manufacturers, so I feel somewhat guilty. But it's the registration opens at an indeterminate time, sometime
Yeah, I
around
know.
August or September.
Yeah.
And I think he does that a little bit for the ones that know,
Yeah.
and it helps, because it is first come, first serve.
Yeah.
And so he, there's some people that have done it for 25 years, and
Right.
he doesn't hold spots for anybody
Yeah.
other than,
I think there's some media spots.
Yeah, media spots and
Yeah.
manufacturer spots.
That's
are
what
the
I'm hoping
are
to
the only ones he
sneak in. And
holds.
I'm
There you
going to do
go.
a podcast every day, Brock,
There you go.
during the event.
Perfect.
While it's happening. That's my pitch.
There you go.
know?
So it does have a wait list. In the last couple of years, the wait list is cleared. So really, at this point, just I would talk to someone who's done it.
Yeah.
Um,
I just happen to
and-
know someone.
yeah, there you go. And find out when, and just get on a text list of when registration opens, and
Yeah.
then fire it in immediately. You have to put a deposit down. You don't have to put really any info. You don't need to know a car or a
Right.
team name or anything. It's not in a type of event where Brock cares whether you're the weirder
You are,
your
the happier
car-
he is.
The weirder your car is, if you tell him, "Hey, I've got this," he didn't. When I told him the car that we had picked, he shook his head. Like, just another Porsche. You're like, you should get this like rat rod, and
Okay.
and it may not be wrong from a clicks and views point
Sure.
of view, but anyway, the weirder your car selection is, maybe that could factor. But
Okay.
for the most part, and
All right, so you're going to have to help me strategize what we
yeah,
should pick.
Yeah.
So-
I think like, what is it? It starts with a C. I can't even remember. Console. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, like, yeah, if you had something like a Mosler, something where
Yeah.
it's like a little bit of a blast from the past,
Sure.
it's different. Yeah, he might give you a little bit of leeway. But
Okay.
other than that,
A DeLorean.
sure, a DeLorean would be a great pick
Yeah.
in his mind. I
Cool.
think.
Very cool. Thanks again. Oh, so there's not a lot of luggage room in
No.
a 911. So
No, and Nick would say I pack too much.
yeah,
so.
but all you're packing is hair product, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
How do you-
I it may have been mentioned to me.
It
few
may have been.
times. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. So you take like 8 pairs of underwear and 2 T-shirts, and that's how you do it.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Same Goodyear shirt every day.
Exactly.
Basically one hat. And
Exactly.
one
Is there
pair of
room to
shoes.
do? Is there time to do like a load of laundry somewhere along the way? No.
No. This year wasn't too bad from a transit point of view, but a lot of times, we're lucky because you as soon as you finish the afternoon time trial, you get to leave.
Right.
You can stay if you want to.
Sure.
But if you want to sleep,
You go.
get on the road.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of people will say there's kind of 2 events. There's the event for the front pack and the event for because the cars that are slower, if you
Start
do it
last.
yeah, you might run. I might be 3 hours down the road,
Yeah.
or someone who's running up front. And it's not again a driver thing. It's a lot of times car. A Honda Fit and a 911 Turbo S.
Sure.
Hopefully, should never be running
But-
the same lap time.
Yeah, you would hope. If it is, then
Yeah,
you got,
you got some
your
questions.
911 Turbo S
Yeah.
has done some really
Yeah.
bad, stupid stuff. But that said, the fit would start later in the day too,
Correct.
so they don't have to be there at the first start of the day.
That's
or do they,
correct.
Or do
But-
they have to check in
So
and just sit there?
We get there in the morning, usually do a track walk. You don't have to do a track
Sure.
walk. So that is what some of the teams
Oh,
do.
you
so
want
if
that track walk.
If you're going to your local track, because there's no practice. So
Sure.
you show up, you line up. We usually start at 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they line up the first group, and you go. And there's no middle of the day track walk.
Right, so
the track
if
is
you
open
need that
usually
track
at
walk.
6 or 6:30, and you're allowed anything that is not motorized. So you can go out on a scooter
Razor.
or a bike,
Yeah.
something like that. Most teams will carry the little Razor scooters
Yeah.
because that's easy to fit in any car.
Sure.
So we have a Razor scooter we stuff in somehow. And yeah, so we'll typically scoot some laps in the morning. But yeah, some of the teams that are running, later in the morning
Right.
will go, you know what? I think an extra 2 hours of sleep is better for me than a track walk. I'll watch
Yeah.
some YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And so that's absolutely a way to have yourself. But
They
yeah,
also have a sim in the back of the car that they're driving around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. It's
Cool.
it. By the end of the week, you're very tired.
Cool.
There's no two ways about it.
All right. Dave Ogburn, the reigning one lap of America champion, hoping to walk out of here as the Spec Racer Ford national champion, but there's
Trying
about
to, yeah.
60 other guys out here
Yeah.
or gals who want
Some
to do
other
the same
people
thing.
disagree with me. but-
Exactly. So thanks again. Always good to catch up with you
Thank
on
you
the
for
show.
having me.
Appreciate it. So, all right, that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the SCCA. If you like what you're seeing, subscribe to the channel. That is the Racing Network on YouTube and the Racing Wire Podcast Network. Leave a comment in the section, in the little comment section. Tell me what you think. Follow us on social media. It's at Race Announcer Brian on the Twitter to find out who our next guest is. We will be back with a bunch of shows here this week from the runoffs, and then we'll be back on our regular Wednesday show next week. A special Wednesday show next week. You don't want to miss that one. Catching up again with Jason Pribble, who's trying to win a championship in Europe. SCCA guy trying to live the dream in Europe. So check out that show next week with us. I'm Brian Belansky. He's Dave Ogburn. We'll be back next, actually Friday morning. Talk to you later, everybody.